Okay, after you've saved your perfect selection in Photoshop, you can import it into Final Cut Pro and start animating the layers. So if you go File, Import, Files, find the file you want to open, double click it or select it, and it'll bring it into the browser. Now if you double click it in the browser, it will eventually open up in its own timeline, as you can see right down here. So this red line means this needs to render. We'll render this later. Over here in your canvas window, you can see the footage that you have here. So I have video 1 layer and video 2 layer. You can see as I toggle those layers off and on. My subjects are on their own layer and the background is on its own layer, so I can animate them independently. But very important, we need to change the sequence settings, because right now the sequence settings is the size of the original Photoshop document. We want to make it the size of video. So if I go to sequence settings, I want to change the frame size right here to, we'll do HD TV 1080i, which gives us a frame size of 1920 by 1080. Pixel aspect ratio, change that to square. And then our QuickTime video settings, let's change this to HDV, we'll do 1080p 30. And click OK. And now that changes that to a video size. So first I'm going to animate our subjects in the foreground. So double click them to select them, and I'll go to the Motion tab. And you see here under Scale, I can make them bigger or smaller. So I'm going to start them that size, like 77% of the original, and we'll make them slowly get bigger. So in order to animate the layers in Final Cut Pro, you need to add keyframes. And that little icon is where you insert or delete keyframes. So a keyframe is an instruction to the computer when you're going to start and when you're going to stop an action. So I need a keyframe at the beginning, because that's when my subjects are going to start getting a little bit bigger. And then I'm going to go ahead about 5 seconds in, and I'm going to add another keyframe, and that's where they're going to stop getting larger. So while my playhead is on that second keyframe, I can just scale them up a little bit. And you'll see now as I scrub through the video down here, they're growing over time. So I'm going to do the same thing to my background layer. So double click that. I'm going to add a keyframe at the beginning, and I'll make my background a little smaller, 83%. Then I'll go roughly 5 seconds in, and my playhead's going to kind of snap to where the previous keyframe was on the other layer. I'm going to add another keyframe there, and we'll go from 83% to 90%. So now both the background layer and the foreground layer are going to expand, but at different rates. Another thing I want to do is add a little blur to the background. So I still have my background layer selected, and the blur is under Effects, Video Filters, Blur. I'll select Gaussian Blur, and that is added over here in my Filters tab. So I have a timeline for Gaussian Blur too, and I need to add keyframes. I'll keyframe at the beginning and set the blur to 0. Go about 5 seconds in, add another keyframe, and I'll give a significant amount of blur. We'll say 12. So if I scrub through here, you can see 3 things are happening. The background is getting bigger and blurring, and my subjects are also getting bigger too. And the last thing to do will be to add a text layer. So if I go to video, there's this little A icon here. Click that. I can do text, click on text, and it'll take me to this sample text. I'm just going to click and drag that down and put it right on top of my video. So you can see here, it's right here in the video. Now if I double click it, I can go to Controls, and I can change what the text says and how it appears. So I'm just going to write HTHMA in there for mine. Scale it up pretty big. I'm going to change the font to Bauhaus, why not? And let's change the color to a red color. that looks kind of good. I'm going to add a drop shadow too, so that's under the Motion Drop Shadow tab. And I think it would look cool if my text was behind our subjects, so I'm just going to grab the layer with the subjects, put them on top of the text. And when I make the text a little bit bigger, go to the font size. Now it'll be behind my two subjects. So we have something like this. So you also want to animate the text too. I'm just going to keyframe the font size, and we'll start at 140, and then keyframe it again, and I'll make it go to, I don't know, 150. It's not going to be much of a change, but I also want the text getting bigger too. So now it's done. I just need to export it as a QuickTime movie. So I'll go File, Export, QuickTime Movie, and put it in the appropriate folder, and you're done.